today we have a very cool guest with us. I think this is going to be a very interesting topic for a lot of you out there. As you know, we've interviewed several people and had several guests on our podcast that talk about their diversified interest in personal protection. And, many of them had different starting points. Some people didn't even own a gun and then moved into carrying every day. Some people had extensive firearms experience and hunting and fishing, and then they moved on to personal protection. Some people actually had some personal protection experience and were in the military or law enforcement, and now they're kind of civilian personal protection. Today, we're going to be talking to Kelsey, and Kelsey's unique perspective is that she has gone from the position of not owning a gun or having a gun, and we'll talk a little bit about her childhood and how that went through, to going through her 20s, and now she's a mom with 2 children, and personal protection has become an important part of her life, and she's understood that she needed to be the protector of her family. Now, in this particular podcast that we're doing, you can also go back and reflect, and Kelsey actually is the author of one of our blogs, and she blogged and a little about her experience and the transition she went through and all the aspects of going from, realizing that now I'm a mom and I need to protect the family. So not only are you going to get to hear Kelsey in person with us today, but if you want to go back and read her blog, you'll find that's very informative as well. So welcome, Kelsey. Thank you very much for being here. So tell us a little bit about your childhood so that everybody can get up to speed. I mean, when you were growing up, were firearms part of your life? Is there any phases in your life that you had, prior to being an adult, any phases in your life that you were exposed to things where you might have had some concerns about personal protection? But mostly growing up, were firearms a part of your life?
Actually, they weren't part of our life. I grew up in a John Wayne household. Like, we watched John Wayne movies all the time. So it wasn't something that was totally foreign to me. My dad used to do stuff with his buddy and roping cattle and shooting and that kind of stuff. But we never really had it around when I was a kid. It was just kind of tucked in the closet. Like, I knew my parents had them, but we never got them out to play with or had any
so no childhood experiences, not being nothing like that, no target shooting, no hunting, fishing, or anything like that. And so, after you moved out of the parents' house, at some point, everybody does that. How did that go for you? Did you have any interest in firearms at that time in your life, or,
Yeah, actually, I was able to move into an apartment with one of my friends. She owns a house and it had a separate apartment attached. And she is from a hunting family and her husband is a hunter. And she was getting into shooting and personal carry and that kind of stuff around the time that I moved in. So she kind of sparked that interest. Not only that, but moving out and being by myself a lot was just something where I felt like I needed to have something to protect me while everyone else was gone.
Great. So was she a hunter herself, and did they go as a family and go hunting?
Very little, but she has in the past. And her 2 kids are excellent hunters. They're very incredible people. Yeah.
That's great. Did she carry for personal protection?
Yeah, she and I actually took the class together.
Oh, okay. So how long ago was this about?
Oh, man. Probably 8 years, a little less than 8 years ago.
8 years ago? Okay. So was there anything prior to meeting her and her family or anything? Did you have any experiences in life that you thought, wow, I really need to be protected? Or, was it the world events that you were watching TV? Most recently, as we know, in the last 2 or 3 years, there's been a lot on TV about civil unrest. But 8 years ago, there was only isolated events of that and different things. So did anything happen that sparked that interest as well, too?
Yeah, actually, I was out with my friends, just out to dinner, late dinner, and we had split off from each other to get back to our cars. And I was probably 21, 22, and I was walking down an alley that I was comfortable with typically, and there was a man hiding behind a trash dumpster, and he jumped out and started running for me. So I went the opposite way down a side alley that led to a main street, and I just ran as fast as I could, and ran out into a bunch of people, and nothing, thank God, happened to me physically. But it was one of those moments where I just realized, like, I need to be prepared in any way that I can be. Just being a female and being an independent female, where I didn't feel like I needed somebody else walking me to my car or anything of that sort. So
Yeah.
it was just,
So there's a couple things there. First, that's what seems to happen to a lot of people. They're walking someplace, or they're someplace where they're very comfortable. They feel secure. And that just goes to the point that you never know when it's going to happen, because most people think, right? It'll never happen to me. I'm just walking down an alley. I've walked down this alley a bunch of times before. And the next thing you know, you're caught in a bad situation. So that's a scary part. That can be an eye opener as well, right there, huh?
absolutely.
And so after that happened, and you'd walk down there, and now you've realized, one of the things that you said that was kind of interesting too, is people say, I'm an independent woman, and I don't need anybody to walk me to my car. I mean, I think that brings to point too, that it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, but I think more likely for a woman, it never hurts to have somebody to do those kind of things for you.
Oh, no, absolutely not. I think it's wonderful. And there are so many outlets now that have been put into place by restaurants and bars and stuff, where if you feel uncomfortable, you're able to let them know, and they will have somebody take you to your car. But when you're not expecting it, it's just like you don't think about it.
Exactly. You don't think about it. And so, probably not very good situational awareness at that point, not walking around, not looking, not thinking about what happens if somebody jumps out from behind the dumpster and chases me. And you probably didn't have any personal protection tools.
Just my keys.
Just your keys. Yeah. All right. I watched a video once of a poor lady that came out of a restaurant and was walking to her car by herself. And she had her purse and her keys, and she was looking in her purse for her keys. And once she found her keys and she pressed her fob and the lights flashed that her car was open, a bunch of guys ran after her, chased her, tackled her, and beat her up, and then stole her car. And my thoughts were if she only would have, this was 11 o'clock at night, should have asked somebody to walk her to a car. That could have been, could have eliminated that situation. Do you think that happens to a lot of women? That they feel like they're independent, they're confident, which is nothing wrong with those feelings. But do you think that sometimes that might, prevent them from doing, like, what you might say, I didn't need somebody to walk me to my car?
I think that is a really big thing that a lot of women think and talk about, is just kind of I'm good, I don't need any help, and just kind of fluffing it off. I think a lot of women go through that, and it's part of not wanting to seem weak or be weak or feel vulnerable and have somebody else have to take care of our situation. Especially my generation. I'm kind of on the tail end of millennial generation. And we kind of grew up just, you do your own thing and you get your own stuff done, and you are an independent person and that kind of stuff. But I mean, now that I'm a mom, but also a wife, I love that support. I still have my independence in certain things, but I love having that support and that extra, I don't know, backing or protection or whatever my husband wants to bring to the table. I feel extra protected and extra championed, kind of in the.
Yeah. So there's always a value in what you might call team.
Yeah,
And whether it's a team, meaning a family's a team, a husband and wife, or whether it's friends or whatever. I mean, you're so much more empowered as a team than you are by yourself.
100%.
Yeah. And I think you're right. I mean, I think women do that a lot and have that, and men do it too. And I'm not saying that we're any better off with that, but everybody wants to feel independent and feel like I don't need help. And in certain situations, you should always err on the side of safety and being cautious, particularly in places where things can go bad really quick.
Yeah.
So, now that happened to you, unfortunately, thank God nothing bad happened and you got to a safe place really quick. So what was your next step after that? I mean, so now you had this bad event, and a lot of people do, and that's the transition from, oh, I need to get more training or whatever. What did you do?
Shortly after, I actually went to a local shop here that I knew the daughters of the owner from high school. It's called Grandpa's Pawn, and everybody in the town knows about it. And they are a big firearms store and pretty much anything you can think of that a pawn shop would have. But he is so knowledgeable in everything that he sells, and his employees are so knowledgeable and helpful that I felt comfortable going in there and asking them questions about my first firearm purchase. So
So you had no guns before. This was a brand new experience going in, as green can be, into a gun store. How did you feel when you walked in? I mean, you talked about this woman, being a woman, and when you walked in, did you feel like there was any difference, or were you just another and this isn't to talk about their store. This is just talk about your feelings,
Yeah. No, it was, I came in and I was very honest. I was like, I have never done anything like this before in my life, and I'm really going to need you to treat me like I'm 5. So I...
or 21.
Yeah. But I said, this is kind of what I'm looking for, and I want something small enough and comfortable enough and reliable enough for me to move forward with getting a concealed carry permit. And the man that helped me was just walking through each and every one of the pistols that they had there, and just kind of treated me, I feel like, what he would treat his daughter or his granddaughter. Just,
right.
Yeah, love to help you. And I would love to have another woman out there carrying and feeling protected and comfortable.
Yep. I feel the same way. I feel very strongly that every woman should carry a gun. Now, I feel equally as strong that every person that's legally allowed to should carry a gun. But in particularly, I'm a big supporter that I think women should be able to protect themselves, because the perception is, like you said, that women sometimes can be more vulnerable. I mean, if you walked into a restaurant, or you were a bad guy and you looked at a table and there's a table of 5 guys and a table of 4 girls or 4 ladies, which one are you more likely to feel is most vulnerable? And they're going to, kind of probably pick the ladies. And so if one of those ladies has the ability to protect everybody, then that's a tremendous advantage to everything. So when you went in there and you picked out your gun, if you don't mind, what firearm did you end up with?
I got the Sky CPX-1.
Okay.
So just a 9mm, just about this big, something that I felt comfortable with in my hands. And it was in my price range. So the guy was very much like, I think this is a really good gun for you, and here's why.
Great. So Good, good. And those are some of the facts. So he went through grip and trigger control and everything with you about holding the gun and making sure that that was all comfortable with you. Good. So now that you got your gun and you came home with it, what was the next step in your process?
My friend and I ended up going and doing our hunter safety first, and then we went and
hunter safety.
Yeah. So
Good.
We just wanted to get all of it out of the way for any possibility for us to be able to do stuff in the future. But we did that and then went to our concealed carry class a couple weeks after.
So you're in the state of Colorado. We don't need to mention the city, but you're in the state of Colorado. And I have to admit, I didn't do my research on that, but is Colorado required training to get your concealed weapons license?
Yeah, you are required to have a class certified by the state, and they give you a certificate and all of that. It's usually a 2-day process, certain amount of
2-day?
hours. Yeah, they have to split it up. They do. Our classes were like 4 hours and 4 hours.
So you have to take an 8-hour class to meet the qualifications. Okay. All right. So when you chose the class, because this is one of the things that we talk about, not only in our podcast, but we've talked about in our blogs that you've probably looked at, is choosing your firearm instructor and making sure you try to get the best instructor you can. You want to tell us a little bit about, how did you choose the class and the instructor?
Yeah, actually, my friend that invited me to go with her, she had another friend that had just taken the class from this lady, and she said, I can't say enough good things about her. Like, I felt so empowered leaving, and I felt so encouraged by all of my questions being answered and not feeling like I was the dumb one in the class. So it was close to our home where we were living, so we were able to get there easily. And
great. And that was an 8-hour class then.
Yeah. So
8-hour class. Which now we talked a little bit about this before. This was an all ladies class.
Yeah, it was.
And you chose. Was that a comfort level for you, or that just happened to be available?
No, it was actually something that I didn't know was going to happen at first, but then when I got more information about the class, I was really excited about, because sometimes in the hunting or the gun community in general, as a woman, you come into it and you are almost patted on the head like, oh, wee lamb, like, oh, it's so cute that you want to get involved. And then you're overly talked to, or you're overly instructed when, say, you knew more about the process than that person that was there. It's intimidating, and it's sometimes a little bit frustrating, just kind of being treated like a child or someone who doesn't know anything about it, because you're not the typical person who's there at the range.
Yeah. And that's really kind of sad that occurs, and I agree. I have seen that, and I think it's really sad that it occurs. And I've had lots of my female friends tell me that that's the perspective and that's what happens. It's unfortunate because, in shooting a gun or owning a firearm or being a hunter, there's many female hunters out there, it's all the same. There's no difference. There's no physical difference or anything. It's a skill that anybody can be good at.
Yeah.
So
and you don't have to grow up doing it.
What's that?
You don't grow up doing it, and you can learn it from a later age. And it's something that's supposed to be so community oriented and welcoming for anybody who wants to join. So it's yeah.
And so it's unfortunate that you had that sort of negative connotation about that, but that was probably based on reality as well. So when you finished your class, what was the next step after that?
The class, when we finished, it was just kind of like on with our normal everyday life. I didn't actually go in and get the concealed carry permit right away. At first, I was just kind of like, I don't know if I'm actually going to carry this all the time, and just waiting and figuring things out, and then moving and that kind of stuff. So I was in the process of like, I don't really have a permanent address. And with the application, you have to have a permanent address. So I think part of it was talking myself out of it for a little while.
So was this before you got married then and everything?
Yeah, this was before I got married. And I actually got concealed carry after I got married and just after I had kids.
Gotcha. So
I waited quite a while.
So, because Colorado is a concealed carry state?
Yeah, and we have we have several states that accept our permits as well. Right. And we're still technically an open carry state. But unfortunately, we're leaning a little bit more towards the possibility of more gun laws and gun control and that sort of situation.
I think that's nationwide, and that's why it's so important to pay attention to what's going on and pay attention who you vote for and what their principles are and things like that. So you went to the class, you basically kind of put your gun in the case or put it in the drawer for a while?
A lot. I went and shot it a lot. We had open space in the backyard. We were able to set up targets safely and go out and shoot. So Robin and I would go out and target practice, or when I would get off work, I would go out and do that kind of stuff. So I was practicing a lot.
Good.
I went through a lot of ammunition. But it was just not something that I was overly confident in carrying by myself just yet. I needed to get more comfortable and confident in using the firearm versus just slapping it on and hoping for the best.
Right. Which a lot of people do, unfortunately. So when now, you're transitioning through, let's say you got married, you had some kids, and as you talk about in your article, you felt like, I need to be the person that's able to protect myself and my children. Why don't you share with our audience a little bit about how you made that transition and what you did there?
I was reading a lot about current events and situations that were happening. And there were several people that I personally followed on social media that had individual circumstances happen where somebody attacked them or was trying to take their kid at a Walmart parking lot, or things that were happening locally in parking lots to young women and moms of young children. And it was just a light bulb went off in my head and said, it's time and you need to do it now.
And about how long ago was this?
Just a couple years ago.
Okay.
I don't remember exactly. But it was just something where I was like, mama tiger mode, mama bear mode. Like, I need to be able to protect my kids at all costs, no matter what's happening. And just a lot of it was current events. And a lot of it was just my individual desire to make sure my kids had somebody with them all the time that was comfortable and confident in taking care of them. I'm a stay-at-home mom, so I'm their first interaction throughout the day and their main interaction throughout the day. So why can't I be the strongest interaction throughout the day?
Good for you. And sets a good example for everything as well, too. So in the last couple of years, you'd already had your concealed weapons course taken. Didn't you went and got your license then?
Yeah. In the county that I'm in, it's super easy. We have a really great sheriff where we are, and he's very much a 2A supporter and really wanting people to go forward towards that. So our county makes it less difficult than just the county over.
Gotcha.
And it's actually $100 cheaper to get it through our county. So
that's a good thing too. Make it easy for you to be able to protect yourself, or affordable to be able to protect yourself. That's equally as important. So did you take any other training classes now that you've decided you wanted to carry? Did you go take any kind of a defensive shooting class or anything like that?
I wasn't able to take a defensive shooting class, but what was included in my concealed carry class, we were able to do different layouts of shooting and different positions of shooting. She had different targets set up at different ranges, and she would shout out a pattern where she wanted us to shoot. We would shoot behind something, and we had the opportunity to advance and retreat. So we had different movement patterns, and we were able to just move and learn how to move and learn how to.
Sounds like an absolutely excellent concealed carry course.
It was very exciting, and the woman leading it was just like, I want to empower any woman who wants to carry, and I want to answer any of your questions and not make you feel like the dumb one in the class, like the bottom of the totem pole.
That's great. So what did you decide on, which position do you carry? Where did you decide that was the best for you to carry?
I use a belly band, so the elastic band that Velcros in the front, and I carry right appendix. And usually I'm in some kind of yoga pant or something comfortable to move around and be crazy with my kids. So it fits really comfortably with those, and it's not something that I feel concerned about it falling out or anything like that. It's a very tight fit, and it's just comfortable. So I feel comfortable being able to pick my kids up or jump with my kids or anything like that. I don't feel like they're going to mess with anything in that respect, or any kind of dangerous situation can happen.
A lot of women have more questions about apparel than men, and that's one of the common threads that we talk about when people are carrying is the apparel considerations that you have to make. Do I have the right shirt on? Am I able to draw from concealment? How does it fit in my pants? But, women wear a lot tighter fitting clothes than I think most men wear. And you brought up one point, yoga pants is like one of the most popular things now that everybody wears. Where I live, people wear shorts a lot. So wearing shorts that don't necessarily have strong waistbands or any kind of running shorts or things like that. So you choosing a belly band worked out the best for you and allows you to carry comfortably and have ready access to your. Now, do you have places that you can go that allow you to draw from your holster and practice that skill? You mentioned the backyard or wherever the folks live that you can practice there.
Yeah, my husband's family has acreage actually just a couple miles down the road from where we live. So we are able to use their firing area to practice our quick draw and just drawing in general. Because most most ranges just kind of frown upon that because of the safety hazards and people getting too crazy. So the one that we have a membership to allows you to quick draw from the table, but they don't allow you to quick draw from person from
the holster. Oh, so you have a tremendous advantage that unfortunately a lot of other people don't have. And that's the fact that people can go and get the training to draw from concealment and do defensive shooting, but then you can't find a range that allows you to practice those skills. So having your own property is a tremendous advantage to keeping up those skills and doing those types of things. So do you carry everywhere now?
I do just about. Yep. There are a few places that I don't, just because of their request or anything, and I don't want to even try to step on any toes. But there are a few places that I refuse to not carry.
But in general, you've got it. In general, when you're taking your children to the grocery store or the gas station or anywhere like that. Now,
Absolutely.
What about having a firearm in the house with your kids? What kind of precautions do you take? Have you educated your children? I forget how old they are. Remind me again how old they are.
My son is 4 and my daughter's 2.
2?
Yeah.
Okay. So they're still very young.
Yeah, they really are. But from the very beginning with my son, we told him, like, these are mommy and daddy's. These are not toys. And these are very special tools that we can use to provide for our family, because we are a hunting family as well. So we explained that part to them at this point of, this is what we use to bring meat home, and this is what we use to protect our home. We have to use a lot of superhero terms and villain and that kind of stuff just to kind of get it on the level that they fully understand. But I like to think that my kids are really super smart, and they got it. They got it right away, and they have their own little Nerf guns, and we play with the Nerf guns with them and that kind of stuff. And we are working on the trigger position, the finger and the trigger positions with them. And you don't point it at people, excuse me, and you don't point it at yourself. And we actually have a target set up on one of our walls that they're able to use and shoot at.
That's great. And you come from a unique perspective also, in the sense that you're a hunting family. I've found that families that are rural families or hunting families, they don't have any problem educating their children at a very young age. I grew up in the country. I was in 2nd grade and I was shooting a .22 and actually hunting with some of the fellow kids not in the neighborhood, but with adults under supervision. But we went out hunting together, and we traveled with the adults when they were hunting. We were shooting at a very young age. I have some friends that have kids that are hunters already. And, so rural families appear to do that more frequently than urban families, which have a tendency to not share much with their kids about guns. And plus, your kids are learning 2 really important perspectives. 1, firearms provides food. 2, firearms provide protection. So, 2 very important things in life. And I've always, go ahead.
No, I was just agreeing.
Yeah. And I think, and one of the things people ask me all the time about, we're going to have a gun in our house. What should we do? We got kids. And I've always said, well, that's the perfect time for a family meeting. You should sit down with your kids. I don't care how young they are. 2's getting pretty young. 4 or 5's getting a little bit more of the age they can understand. And I'm not saying you should teach them firearms, but you should teach them just like you teach them about the knives in the kitchen and the screwdrivers in the work shed. That this is a tool, as you mentioned it, and here's this tool. Take the curiosity out of it. Show it to them. Let them see it. Let them understand they need to be safe with it. Let them understand that it's as dangerous as a knife in the kitchen. Because not only is that important in your own house, but if your son should go over to Joe Bob's house and Joe Bob brings out a gun, you want your son or daughter to be the person, wait. My parents taught me about this. This is too dangerous. Never point it, Don't point it at people. Don't put your finger on the trigger. This isn't a toy. So, home education can be a broader perspective to other people's houses and help save other kids too if you start out early teaching them.
Absolutely. I grew up remembering hearing the stories of the young people, the kids like 6 and 7 year olds who would find their parents' handguns and be just playing cops and robbers or something like that. And there was one kid I remember, he knew enough to take the magazine out, but he didn't know that there was a round in the chamber, and he ended up shooting his little sister. And just things like that. Like, I want my kids to be the ones in their friend group who are comfortable and confident to be able to handle a situation where if their friend brought a handgun or a rifle or a shotgun out, that they would be able to say, hey man, like, we're not hunting. We're not target practicing. Why are you bringing this out? There's no need for it. We've got other things we can use. And Nerf guns are crazy now. Like, we play with them all the time. So why not use those to play with instead of using a real firearm just as a young kid? And just like alcohol, like, I want my kids to come to me and let me know, like, hey, this is what's happening in my friend group. I don't feel comfortable or confident in it. Can you teach me more, or can I ask you more questions?
Right. And kids have a little bit more challenge today than when I was a kid. When I was a kid, there was a distinct difference between a toy gun and a real gun. Toy guns were cap guns. I'd say that's, in my age, they shot caps and they were very cheaply made. And, there was not very many similarities between a toy gun and a real gun. Nowadays, toy guns are hard to differentiate from real guns. They feel the same. They look the same. They almost have the same functionality. And so for kids, that's got to be a little bit harder sometimes. Like, does Billy have a toy gun, or is that a real gun, And teaching your kids to know, how to safely manage a gun, like you're saying, Nerf gun, toy gun, real gun. If they use the same gun safety principles for all of them, then that's a great message for them to have and share with their friends as well too.
Yeah, it's like when you're first learning everything about gun safety in general, one of the first rules is assume every gun is loaded.
Correct.
And when you teach a kid, even at the age of 2, just assume that this can hurt you. And make sure that you are taking the right steps to avoid getting hurt. Same with climbing up those steps or going down a slide. Like, make sure you are taking the right steps to ensure that you're not going to get hurt, or right, being hurt is going to be less than what it could be in the end.
And I think culturally, it's a good thing too. Because I think if we start teaching kids at a young age about guns, and that they understand that they're just tools to be used for selected purposes, then they don't get influenced by the crazy media trying to tell them that how bad guns are and how terrible they are, and make the stigma that might scare kids or make them fearful of the unknown because nobody taught them about it. And so somebody that takes a proactive role like you have with your kids to do that, I think has long-term benefits to our society.
Thank you. My husband and I always say schools should go back to what they used to do and do hunter safety classes in the school, or some kind of firearm safety. I think if more people would have less of an immediate fear with what a gun is or what a gun can do, then I think, and this is just my opinion, I think that we would have less issues with young people using them in malicious ways.
I agree.
I think that being able to take the stigma away from what a firearm is and the assumption that they can just go off whenever, or they can just hurt you just by picking it up, and just letting them know, like, no, this is just a machine that is used in this way, and here's how the machine functions.
You said that very perfectly. That was an excellent way, because I think that's very good, because that's what it is. A firearm is a tool, and it has a certain purpose for use, just like your knife does, just like your chainsaw does, just like a lot of other items that you have around your house that can be equally dangerous and do a lot of harm if not treated safely and appropriately.
Yeah, definitely.
And people take a lot of time to teach their kids about those things, and they learn about them. So why not teach them about arms? I am like you. I think it would be a tremendous advantage for everybody, for teachers, for students, for our society in general, that if we started teaching kids in school about handguns and about firearms, then that would take away a lot of the stigma, and we would educate a lot more people on that. But I think that is probably far-fetched to think that that's going to happen in our lifetime.
Yeah, unfortunately. One thing that we have talked about is homeschooling our kids, partially just so we are able to go hunting and hiking and fishing and shooting really whenever we want. But another part of it is so we can, so we can kind of control what our kids are taking in and what is being put out in their education. Like, we want them to be able to have the desire to come to us and say, hey, can we go hunting this weekend? Our freezer's looking low, or my buddy needs some meat, or so-and-so is interested in getting involved in this kind of lifestyle. Can we take them and just go for a week?
Yeah.
And have no problem.
So I have a friend who has a ranch, and I spend a lot of time out on his ranch with him. And a lot of that same thing has happened. I've seen that with him, where his kids, will invite their friends, and their friends will be out there and find out that is an outstanding environment to be in, and want to come out there more frequently. And that's a very positive thing. First of all, it gets kids outside and off their phones and off their iPads or all their other video games that they're playing, and gets them to experience the real world, which more kids need to do in general, and get a little dirty. But there's so much more to that to be learned as well, too. I mean, if you can learn about hunting and fishing and about providing for yourself, to me, that instills a sense of confidence in people as well, too.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've noticed just in the little things that we're able to teach our kids, it doesn't necessarily have to specifically pertain to firearms, but anything that I teach my kids or my husband teaches our kids, you see that glimmer of like, oh, I get it, and I'm excited to get it. And when it comes to something like being outside, I live in Colorado, and we have beautiful outside areas that we're able to go to.
Yeah.
And we're blessed with close family with large amounts of land that we just turn them loose. They're like rabid dogs when they get out of the car. They just go running and crazy and come back completely covered in mud. And that's what we want is, it helps your immune system when you're getting down and dirty. But it also gives you a problem-solving ability. They build forts and swings and all kinds of things like that you just look at and you're like, you can figure this out. Like, you got this. Go find something to do and show me when you're done. Yeah. And it's a sense of pride when you see your kid come back just covered in filth and sweaty and excited and say, Mom, we built a bridge. And you're like, dude, that's awesome. I'm so proud of you.
That's very true. So what's your next step? What is, you're carrying now. Are you planning for more training? Do you feel like you want to take some more kind of classes? What's your next step in this process?
I would love to eventually get to a position where I can take a more tactical class and learn more in-depth training. One thing my husband and I talk about a lot, because we both have an entrepreneurial mindset, so we think about 1,000 different things that we want to do with our future. One thing we talk about is doing a tactical gym and having the ability to have a place where people can come and have a physical body workout if they want, but also have people there to train them in different situations, firearm safety or personal protection or any kind of training in that retrospect. That would be like an ultimate dream to be able to provide that to our community. It's not in the near future, but that's a thing that we talk about and kind of aim for when we're moving forward in our plans.
Yeah, that sounds like a pretty cool concept, because a lot of people forget other ways of personal protection too. I mean, many people go straight, and, like you did or other people, go straight from, oh my God, I need to protect myself, I need a gun. But in reality, part of protecting yourself can be saying, I need to take jujitsu, or I need to take Krav Maga, or I need to take karate, or I need to take some other type of personal protection training as well, because in reality, you're more likely to probably use that training than you are a firearm, because you're more likely to be in an alley where somebody's chasing you, or you're more likely to be somewhere where somebody sneaks up on you. And it may not be a lethal, deadly force thing. It might mean just protect myself in the beginning. And so having a place where people can learn multiple aspects of, personal protection is a pretty unique concept that, I would imagine, or I would think and hope that a lot of people would be interested in that, because that's exceedingly important.
That's where my husband comes from, is a physical body personal protection. He took Krav Maga for quite a while and wanted to get into a more professional fighting aspect. Until he learned that Krav Maga is not legal in the ring. So he was just putting himself into that because he had a situation where he lost somebody very close to him, and he wanted to be able to make his body a weapon of his choice, that he could protect anybody that he was going to be with in the future, or himself in any of these situations. So his first defense is him, and he's not first using the firearm. It's definitely, he has the training to be able to use his hand.
And that's why it's good for women too to have that training, so that they can protect themselves as well. So I want to thank you for being here today. I really appreciate it. What a great conversation with you. We look forward to, if you're up to it, following your transition as you go through and as your kids grow up, and learning about, the skills that you teach them and how they learn to get involved in this. But we'd like to thank you here. For those of you listening to this podcast, we invite you to, again, like I mentioned in the beginning, go to Kelsey's blog, read her blog. I think this was an exceedingly informative conversation about being a mom and being the protector of your family, knowing the value of being able to protect your kids. Also, the value of teaching your kids about firearms early and letting them know how the safety and the rules of firearms management goes well beyond your house in many cases. And I think it helps our culture. If you teach kids young about firearms, and that they're not this scary, whatever kind of thing that they want you to think they are, but they're a tool used, as Kelsey said, to provide you food and personal protection, that is an incredible part of education.